Welcome to video number 3 of 5 on true happiness and how to achieve it. I'm Michael Powell, your narrator for this series. Summary. To achieve true happiness, you must understand exactly what is happiness, where is happiness, how it works, and above all, how to achieve it, which is a creation. Most everything you think you know about happiness now is wrong. This is because all the ideas, beliefs, paradigms in the culture itself about what is happiness is wrong, and you have grown up in and absorbed those paradigms. This is not an accident. There's a very good reason why beliefs about happiness are wrong. However, that reason is beyond our scope here. You will find it explained in the psychanics books. Now, we've been talking about happiness and true happiness, but we've never really defined it or explained what it is. That's what we're going to do next. Happiness is a state of only positive emotions. That is, you have no negative emotion. You are free of anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, guilt, resentment, depression, hate. You are free of those permanently. They do not occur within your experience. Okay? And this experience is all the time, your positive emotions. Okay? You're always in this positive emotions. You are never in the negative emotions. And this state is all the time, no matter what. It is impervious, it is impregnable to external events on both sides. That is, you don't need anything positive to feel the happiness, and the negative events of your life, there will always be negative events, do not activate your negative emotions. True happiness is a state of only positive emotions. Let's examine this now. As long as you have attacks or bouts, moments of negative emotions, you are not in true happiness. Okay? Now, to understand your emotions and therefore happiness and the negative, which is UPS, unhappiness, pains, and sufferings, we mustn't start with understanding polarity. Polarity is one of the fundamental phenomena of the creation of the universe. There are many, many polarities, both physical polarities, physical energy polarities, and psychic energy polarities. For example, your relationships are polarities. You can have positive relationships that produce joy and satisfaction, or you can have relationships that are full of problems and conflicts and negative emotions. Relationships is a polarity, okay? So a polarity is one thing, okay, one single thing, one energy, one phenomenon stretched in two opposing directions, okay? So here's one thing, and it can go into positive or it can go down into negative. Thus, it has two poles, a positive pole and a negative pole. This creates a spectrum or gradient of variations of that energy or that experience, that phenomenon between the two poles in negative and positive. So if here is our positive pole and here is our negative pole, between these two we have a spectrum of gradients or variations of that experience, from very negative, less and less negative, to neutral. Here in the middle is neutral, and then we begin to have a little positive, a lot of positive, more positive, and finally we will have maximum positive. Okay, now let's take an example. This is an example in the physical universe. Temperature. Okay, the two poles of temperature are hot, which goes from a little bit hot up to the hottest hot in the middle of stars, and the coldest cold, okay, which is absolute cold at minus 200 and something degrees. Okay, between these two there is a spectrum of temperatures. Okay, each gradient is a different temperature. Okay, so here is the temperature spectrum that goes from the coldest cold to the hottest hot. This is an example of a spectrum. All the spectrums have the same phenomena. Okay, now here is the EMR, or the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. That's what EMR is. Okay, here it is, electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so this goes here from long wave radios to short wave radios to microwave to terahertz radiation to infrared here, and here's the visible light spectrum that you see, which is about here on the entire spectrum here. Then you have ultraviolet rays, X-rays, and finally the gamma rays. So here's the spectrum from the longest rays, longest wavelength, and the slowest or shortest frequency, rather longest frequency, up to your highest frequency and your shortest wavelength over at this level. Okay, all of this is one energy. The electromagnetic radiation is photonic energy. Okay, so your emotions are like the EMR spectrum, and particularly like the visible light part of that spectrum, which is a thin slice. Okay, here we have one energy, okay, which is the emotional energy, okay, coming in, and then we have a spectrum of energies here coming out. Okay, so from one energy comes many. From one white light over here, we're getting out all the colors of the spectrum over here. Okay, this is visible light and how colors are created. You're familiar with it from rainbows. Okay, your emotions are exactly the same way. Okay, they are a single transphysical. They are not physical. They are beyond physical. They exist actually in a different dimension of energy, in a psychanic dimension of energy. And they are a single energy polarity. Okay, so here we have your most negative emotions, and as you go up the energy spectrum, we get into neutral, that says no emotion here, and then from there we go up into your most positive emotions. Just like the EMR spectrum, just like temperature, just like the visible light spectrum. Okay, so you do not have many different emotions. They are all one and the same energy, just polarized or pulled apart into a negative pole and a positive pole, just like white light has many colors, or just like the EMR spectrum or the temperature spectrum goes from maximum cold, which would be down here at the negative, up to maximum hot up here. Okay? You don't have many different emotions. It's all one energy in a spectrum. Okay? So this right here is representing the spectrum that goes down here from the most negative, painful emotions. All this is UPS. Your negative emotions are the only unhappiness and pain and suffering that exists. Very important to understand that. It's not the events in your life that are unhappiness, pain, and suffering. It's your emotions during those events that are the unhappiness, pain, and suffering. Okay? And the same thing for the positive emotions here. Okay? This is the happiness part up here at the top, and it's all one emotional energy spectrum. Now, happiness in this is very simple. Okay? Happiness is feeling. It's how you feel at any moment. Okay? Happiness is purely a feeling. It's got nothing to do with events. It's not what you're thinking, it's not what you're saying, it's not what you're doing, and it's not what you have. It's not your possessions, it's not your money or your relationship or anything external. It's purely your feeling, what you are feeling in any moment. Okay? How you feel, your feelings, these are your emotions. Okay? Now here is what is happiness. Your positive emotions, that is this part up here, this is happiness when you're feeling these emotions. And on the other end of the polarity spectrum, unhappiness, your negative emotions are the only unhappiness, pain, and suffering existing. When you are experiencing any of these down here, that is the negative emotions, then you are in unpleasantness, you are in unhappiness, you are in pain, emotional pain, and emotional suffering. Remember, UPS is always emotional. We're not talking about physical pain or suffering. Okay? So happiness is very simple. It's living up here. It's feeling these emotions. And unhappiness, pain, and suffering is when you are feeling these emotions. And this has nothing to do with your external circumstances. Your positive things, your mops, do not produce these happiness all the time. They will give you a flash of it, yes. And on the other side, the negative events in your life do not cause your unhappiness, pains, and suffering. They are not the cause of your negative emotions. Okay? So again, happiness is positive emotions all the time, no matter what. And that, remember that no matter what means it has nothing to do with external events. Okay? And your own negative emotions, this is very, very important, are the only unhappiness, pain, and sufferings that exist for you. And those negative emotions are never caused by the negative events of your life. It appears that they are, but actually they are only triggers for masses of negative emotional charge that already exist inside of yourself. I'm getting ahead of self. We're going to explain all this in its moment. Okay? So happiness is you living up here in this part of the polarity, from here to here, all the time, no matter what, and nothing can take you out of that. Negative events in your life do not damage or destroy your joy, passion, and enthusiasm in life. Okay? You have, in true happiness, you have zero experience below the line. You do not have any negative emotions. And since you don't have these negative emotional masses inside of you, negative events have nothing to trigger. Okay? So now an alert. The very important understanding is coming. Your happiness in life is never what happens. It's not what you have. It's not how much money, your relationships, your success, your fame, your fortune, whatever. It's simply how you feel at every moment. Now, that feeling can be in relation to those happenings, yes, but the happenings themselves do not cause the feelings. The feelings are psychic energies inside of you. Okay? They can be flashed by external events, by getting a mop, but they cannot be maintained that way. You will lose them. Mops always pass. Okay? And on the other side, your unhappiness, pain, and suffering in life is never what happens. It's not the event, but how you feel about that event. Okay, now you have to really, really understand this, because the secret of happiness is to forget about the external world and to go into your being and work directly on your emotional energies so that you eliminate the negative ones and you create the positive ones so that they are shining all the time in you. And you don't need external events. Positive ones do not affect your happiness, and negative ones do not destroy it. They do not activate your negative energies. Now, psychanics has a scientific absolute proof that nothing external ever causes your emotions, neither the positive or the negative ones, okay? But we're not going to see these right now. It's a little bit beyond this course. Just understand that true happiness has nothing to do with the external circumstances and events of your life. In true happiness, you are happy all the time, no matter what. You are happy with lots of money, or you are happy with no money. You are happy with a relationship, and you are not unhappy when you don't have a relationship. Happiness is purely an internal, psychic, that is non-physical condition of your emotional energy state. And you can learn to go into your being and control that emotional energy state to create positive all the time and to have no negatives. And it's irrelevant of what goes on in your life. and that is true happiness. As long as you're at the effect and you're trying to get external things to be happiness, you'll fail. You don't have the power, and mops always fade. And as long as you're focused in this external quest for happiness, life will continue to give you negative events, and as long as you have these negative emotional charges in your being, those events will trigger them, and you will constantly have attacks of negative emotions. Okay? So, to recap, happiness or pain and suffering, the polarity here, where you're on that polarity scale, is purely how you feel. Which emotion are you feeling at the moment? How you feel is your emotions, positive or negative. Where are you on this? You're in anger, you're in fear. Oh, now you're in enthusiasm, now you're in satisfaction. Then you go back down to guilt, and then there's depression. You're constantly moving up and down this energy polarity scale. You can control that movement. But as long as you're trying to control it by looking for external events, by looking for mops to put you in positive, and you're trying to attack your triggers and avoid negative things because they seem to be negative, you're never going to achieve a happiness. Number one, you haven't enough control over the external events to always have positive and avoid the negatives. Number two, those aren't the true causes of your emotional energy state. The true causes are inside of yourself. Okay? Nothing external causes your emotions. I know it looks like it does. There's a mirage, there's an illusion there, but it is an illusion. And in Psychanics, we're going to teach you how that illusion works, how to overcome it, and how to go into the true causes of your emotions so that you control your emotions directly. You control this energy field that you have as a being. Okay, you don't have to control it with external things, which, as we have said, I hope many times, doesn't work anyway, because mops will not create a permanent happiness, and you will continue to have negative events which you cannot avoid or control. It's the nature of life. Okay, so you've got to get out of this external quest for happiness, this external quest to control how you feel, your emotions. You have to go into your being, and you, as aware will being, take control of your emotional energy by learning how it works. That's what we want to teach you. Okay, now, next concept. Okay, true happiness is all the time, no matter what, or it is not happiness. Okay? Now here's what we want to explain with this. True happiness is a state of positive emotions, positive feeling, all the time, no matter what goes on in your life. Because the nature of life is the parade of events. Some are going to be positive and some are going to be negative. And you will never have enough power to control all the external events of your life. No king, no president, no emperor has ever had the power to always control what happens. Okay? So, your true happiness must be a state of you being able to maintain positive emotions all the time, especially when negative things happen, as they always will. Okay, so true happiness all the time, and here I want to give you two analogies or metaphors for this. One is wealth, and the other is health. Okay, so here we have a polarity scale, right? Okay. So here's the negative, which is poverty. You don't have enough money. And here is wealthy. You have lots of money, excessive money and things, right? And here then is the part, this is rich or wealthy. And here, down here is the negative, which is poor. Okay. Now, if you are living up and down like this, okay, so one day you have money. The next day or the next hour, you're down here and you don't have enough money. Then you get some money, but then you still don't have enough. And then the next day, you win the lottery and you're a millionaire, right? And then the next day, you have spent all that and you almost have no money here. Then somebody gives you a little bit, you spend all of that, and now you don't have enough money. You're back in negative. And then you go to positive. And then you go back here to negative to absolute positive, you know. And then you get a little bit of money, but it's not enough. And then you come back here to this level of no money, of poverty. And then you come up here to positive. You have a little bit of excess money. And then you come back down here to negative again. Would you say a person that lives changing like this hour to hour or day to day from rich to poor, would you consider this person really rich or poor, or really wealthy? No. Okay, you couldn't say that he was rich because he's going up and down all the time. Okay, he's not, there's no constancy, there's no reliability on having money. Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. That does not qualify as wealthy. Okay, now let's do the same thing with healthy. Okay, so again, we have our polarity scale over here. Down here is sick, you feel bad, and maybe you're in the hospital. And here, healthy, you feel fine, and you're out in your life or doing work. Okay, so we got a polarity scale here, right? And again, we have the same situation. Okay, we have a person, okay, he feels fine here, and then 1 hour later, he's sick and he goes to the hospital. He gets a little bit better, and then he gets sick again, no? And then he gets out of the hospital and he goes back to his life and he feels great. But an hour later or a day later, he's not feeling too good, no? Then he feels a little bit better, and then he feels really bad, you know? He gets a little bit better, and then he goes really bad here. Here he's in the sick, really sick in the hospital, no? He gets a little bit better, then he gets worse, then he feels good, okay, and then he gets back. Would you call a person whose health is changing every hour or every day from health to sick, to health to sick, better, sick, and it's going up and down all this thing, would you call such a person healthy? Well, obviously not. Okay? He doesn't have a constant, persistent, reliable health. Every other day he's in the hospital, okay, or taking medicine, or he feels bad and he can't work. That's not health. Health is all the time. You can depend on it. Every day you feel healthy, you feel great, you're going out and working on your passions in life versus you feel sick or healthy. So this isn't health, okay? Going back and forth between the same is not healthy, okay? And so in the same way, if you're going back and forth like this between health, okay, between between positive emotions and negative emotions, then you're not happy. Because happy is all the time, no matter what. Just like being wealthy has to be long-term all the time, or being healthy is all the time. It's not bouncing up and down between the two of them. Okay? So happiness is this. Happiness is living up here in this part all the time, no matter what. And if you're bouncing up and back and down, and you're living down here in unhappiness, pain, and suffering with anger, with fear, with anxiety, with guilt, with resentment, with regrets, with traumas from your past, with problems and conflicts in your relationships, you are not happy. Even if you're bouncing up and down and you have moments of happiness, but then the unhappiness comes back in, that is not happiness. No more than bouncing up and down is wealth or is health. Okay? True happiness is all the time. Okay? So as long as you are experiencing these things, you have attacks of fear and anger and guilt and anxiety and sadness and depression, okay? And you're offsetting them with mops. Okay, you get a goal or something, that's not happiness because you're still bouncing up and down. Okay? Happiness, this is not happiness. Happiness is this. It's positive feeling all the time, no matter what. And if you are bouncing up and down, if you have experiences down here in this part of the spectrum, you do not qualify as happy. You do not qualify as wealthy or healthy if you're bouncing up and down between these two. Okay? So, living on a roller coaster of emotions, which is where you get highs of mops and then you go down here in the lows of suffering. Okay, down here's our thing, and this is the negative of the UPS down here. Okay, and this right here is the positive emotions, and you're living like this on a roller coaster. That is not happiness. Okay? There is too much negative emotion, negative feeling, unhappiness, pain, and suffering in your life. Probably almost every day you're experiencing anger, or you're living in anxiety or fear or regret or guilt or hate or depression or loneliness or sadness or grief. Okay, some people carry grief around with them for years. They carry around with them sadness over failures or things for years. That's not happiness. Okay, there's a technology that exists to permanently eliminate all your negative emotions. That's what we want to teach you. So that, and a technology to create all positive emotions so that you're up here all the time and you live in happiness. Okay? So living like a basketball, bouncing up and down between negative and positive emotions, that's not happiness. It's a life marred by lots of negative emotions, which is the only UPS that exists. Remember, your unhappiness and pain and suffering is never the events or circumstances or situations of your life. It's how you feel during or about or in relationship to those events. And those feelings are energies inside of you that you can control directly and eliminate. Okay, you cannot control them by trying to stop those negative events. There's no way you can stop them. Okay, you don't have the power to stop that a loved one dies, or that you lose your job, or you lose your money, or your wife wants to divorce you. You have no control over that. But you do have control over your internal negative emotions. And you can control those directly without reference to external events. Okay? So, this word, true happiness, has a very special definition, the one that we're trying to teach you. And it's living in positive emotions, which are contentment, interest, enthusiasm, passion, joy, ecstasies, to name some, okay? All the time, no matter what, which means that they are not affected by external negative events, especially the negative events, which are the ones that trigger your negative emotions. These are internal energies. They can be triggered by negative events, but they are not caused by them, and you will never be able to eliminate them by trying to eliminate negative events, eliminate triggers from your life. Your life will always have negative events. It's the nature of life itself. Life itself is a polarity, okay? Life itself is a parade of events, and some of those, from your point of view, are going to be negative, and some of those are going to be positive. That's the nature of life, okay? You can't achieve true happiness in the external quest. The external quest is impossible. It's an impossible dream. Okay? The way to achieve happiness is going into your being and taking your emotional energies, okay, and working with them to discharge, eliminate the negative, and then to create the positive. And psychanics is a technology of how to do this. Okay? So on the other side, true happiness is never marred or disturbed by negative events, and it does not require anything external, that is, mops, money, success. It is always by itself, no matter if you achieve those goals or not. Okay? We're not saying it's bad to have goals of money and success. No. We're saying the error is in thinking that those are going to bring you happiness. You have to create your happiness by working directly in your emotional energy field. Okay? And then you create positive all the time. And if you get some goal, well, good, enjoy it. But you're happy all the time with or without that thing. If you fail to achieve it, or if you lose it later, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your true happiness, which is an interior creation. Okay? So true happiness is impregnable and impervious to external conditions and events. It needs nothing to be happy, and negative events do not cause it to be lost, do not activate the negative energies. Okay? It does not come and go according to external conditions, situations, and circumstances, which are always going to be changing. Okay? So we'll see soon how and why you achieve this. Okay? So happiness is achieved by permanently eliminating all your negative emotions, okay? You can discreate these. Your negative emotions are literally charges or masses of energy in your subconscious that you created in your childhood with all your hissy fits and things that go on, and these stay packed in your subconscious. And what happens is when a trigger event occurs, one of these charges comes in on you and you feel the anger or the guilt or whatever, okay? Then that charge can go back into your subconscious. But if you don't take it and discreate it at the moment, it continues to exist and these things will continue to act and come in onto you. I'm going to explain all these here in a moment, okay? So you need, the first step in achieving true happiness is to go into your being and take these masses of charge of energies and eliminate them. So here, as you go eliminating these, then you have less and less negative emotions, and eventually you live up here in positive emotions all the time. Okay? Okay, so this is what we want to teach you how to do, how to permanently eliminate all your negative emotions, which are the only unhappiness, pain, and suffering that exist in your life. Your unhappiness, pain, and suffering is never the events themselves, okay? For example, some people, when their parents die, they suffer, okay? Other people, when their parents die, they're in indifference. They know that they died, they loved them, they had the experience, and they blessed their parents on their way. Others are happy they died, maybe because they're going to get an inheritance, you know? So the event does not cause the human experience, the human emotional response. For any given event, there can be a great variety of emotional responses. Okay, we'll explain all this in its due time. Okay, right now, just understand that you can be happy all the time, no matter what. You just need to learn how your emotions really work. And that's what we will be seeing in the next videos, okay? So if you want to know more, go now to the Psychanics of True Happiness, video number 4, how your emotions and happiness really works. Thank you.